Welcome to the First Time Farmer. Today we're processing maple syrup, or processing raw maple sap into maple syrup. Enjoy. Okay, we are boiling away. In this configuration, we don't get a hard, robust boil that you might get on, so let's say, a wood-fired evaporator, because heat just isn't that high. But this works. It takes a little longer, but you know, we're just working on other things here and let this kind of boil in the background. It works for us. We only have 5 trees. Hey, thanks for joining us today and coming on this maple syrup adventure with us. This is year 2 for us. Last year, before the kitchen upgrades, I cooked outside on propane like so many do. Used an Instapot. So last year was our first year. We tapped 4 trees and we got about 100 gallons, actually 111 gallons of raw sap, made a little under 4 quarts of finished product. This year I thought, well, you know, we've got the kitchen upgrade, the new stove, big overhead fan that vents outside, and so I thought, well, let's try it indoors. Not what most people want to do. Most people want a wood-fired evaporator outside. They stack up cinder blocks and put restaurant pans over the top of them. There are several Facebook groups that you can look at this. Just Google maple syrup. I'm in the state of Minnesota. We actually have our own Facebook group for the Minnesota maple syrup group on Facebook. But the real issue here is, what do you have that you can boil with, and where is it going to work best? If I couldn't control the steam that you see coming off of this pan, I would have to do it outside. And lucky for us, the upgrade to the kitchen that went in February of 2023 was able to handle the steam coming off of this. Now, as I'll say in a little future clip here, this does not go into a high robust boil like a wood-fired evaporator will, because there just simply isn't enough heat. But it's working. We did the whole season this year. We did, it's kind of an odd season, but we did just under 90 gallons of raw sap and processed that down. So stay tuned. We got a little more coming up here for you now. All right, get my gloves on, because this has been cooking for 3 hours now. So we'll just pour it in here through the filter. This is just the first boil. Just the first boil on 16 quarts that we got off our red silver this morning. And when you go through your first filtering, this is what you get on the inside. And those are the nets, or some people call them maple sand. Same difference. It's a byproduct. It's a component in the syrup that comes out during the boiling process. Okay, so I actually moved it back, but because the burners in the back are smaller, the pan's big enough, I put it across 2 burners. So as we come in here right now, we're at 215, but I keep touching the bottom of the pan. So I'm actually going to shut this down. We're close. I'm going to shut this down and transfer it into a smaller pan so that we don't run the risk of scorching it in the bottom. Okay, this first boil that we go through, you saw that we were sitting at 215. That brings our sugars from about 4% on raw sap to about 25% sugar at this point in time. So we need to get to over 60% sugar. So right now, just checking it again, you just saw this clip, I repeated it so I could talk over it. But this is the process we go through, and then we pour it off it like you saw in the other clip, and I combine it with multiple boils to create a bigger group. Okay, well, now that I got the camera set in place, maple syrup tapping, we're using just inexpensive taps that you get off Amazon. Come with the tap and the hose. And then we get food grade containers at Home Depot. Cold in here, so the sap has got ice in it. And I grab one here, has about 12 quarts in it. I don't have enough to hold the other one, so I'll be back in a minute for the other one. Okay, now through the magic of editing, I have an empty bucket. You come do this one. Now notice that we're up on top of the snowbank, and the snowbank has started to melt away, making it necessary to move the buckets. Alright, got some dirt in there from that little operation. That'll get filtered out. This tree puts out is just a little off color. Always has. Well, always. This is my second year tapping these trees. So, but this is the one that always put out just, it's a little off color all the time. Seems to boil up fine. Everything tastes good, so it's nothing to worry about. And it might be just slightly, these should be the same maple, but they may not be. So. So this is also about 12 quarts. So a maple run happens in the spring of the year when the temperatures come above freezing, and in the evening, overnight, they drop below freezing. And so you get this cycle of coming up to 40 degrees, dropping down to 30 degrees, coming up to 40 degrees, dropping down to 30 degrees. Those are the ideal maple syrup drawing. This year was unusual. We got a lot of snow, and so even though it's pretty late in the season, we still got a lot of snow. And because of that, it was hard to gauge when the season was going to start. So that big maple that you see behind the garage there, we did tap that. That's our 5th tree. Last year that didn't produce well at all. This year it was gangbusters, and so that was unusual. But we had a good week to 10-day run, and then it got very cold and stayed below freezing day and night for almost a week. When we came out of that, which is where we're at now, we're past that cold stretch. When we came out of that, the trees just never performed well again, except that big maple behind the garage. The rest of them were very, very slow to produce anything, which is why we're 20 gallons, 25 gallons short of what we did last year. But it turned out to be a good season. It was just really hard to deal with the odd snow and the unknowing of when the season started and why are they not producing, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of consternation online for that.
All right, well, most of the trees, all the trees have got dual taps in them. They've been running a little slow. Yeah, it's less than a quarter full, so we're just going to leave them for now. And that's probably same with the one up here. This one up here actually produces quite well most of the time. This is a hybrid red silver, and puts out the most sap of any of the trees that we have here. Yeah, not now though. It's only about a quarter full, not much more than we had this morning. So I'm just going to leave it sit for a little while. So that's the pickup for today.
So here we're going into a finishing. We would take, say, a day's worth of sap, 20, 25, 30 quarts on average, and we would boil it down as we've already shown you. We would then filter that into another container, and then tomorrow do the same thing. You get 20 quarts of sap and boil it down to a certain level wherever we feel like it based on its look, and then filter it into a container. Now we've taken about 4 of those pre-filters and combined them, and that's what we're boiling down here. So these got to the point, typically they get to the point where they've gone above the boiling point, and that's sap becomes maple syrup at 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. And so what you get here is we are robustly boiling this. The components that we put together were just coming above the boiling point of water, so they were all in that 210 to 212 to 213 temperature. They're combined together. And now we start to boil them again. So the goal now is to go 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. So as we get closer to the end, you can see here that we are at 215, 216, 219 is the number that we're hunting for. And we get the 219 number by actually boiling a pot of water. I'm not going to put that clip in here, but we actually put a pot of water on a small pot, boil it, and see what the temperature is, because it does shift 1 to 2 degrees in either direction based on the barometric pressure, and that makes a difference as to when this boils and at what temperature it becomes syrup. So 7 degrees above the boiling point of water is your target, and then later I touch it up. But see these little boils, this foam that's coming? This is what happens when syrup gets really close to the edge. Now we're 4 degrees off of our target number, but here we have to start managing. If we don't manage this, these little bubbles will come up and over the top of the pot. And it makes a heck of a mess when that happens. So you want to avoid that, which means you need to monitor it. Once you get to that 214, 215 number, you need to be standing right there monitoring it while it makes its way up to the 219 level. And here you see the foam starting to come down. I've turned the gas down a little bit on the stove, dropped the temp just a hair to keep the foam under control. In a larger evaporator, they have anti-foam. Some people throw a little milk in the top, the other things that people say they put in to reduce that foaming event that happens. Here on the stove and in these small quantities, I just monitor the temperature. It seems to work pretty well. And there it is. So we're just popping, it just popped up the 219. We're gonna call it good and shut it down. So this is the first batch that we did. It's in the coffee urn. Now I bought this urn specifically to do this, so it's not like I took one that we were actually making coffee in. This one was bought specifically for this purpose. I use just a wire mesh cone. And then here I have 3. I'll take these out. I have 1, 2, 3 paper pre-filters, and then into a fabric filter. That's my final filtering. If you can see it, see the debris on the side of that pan? That's what's called maple sand nits, and they stick to the side if the sides are warm, and that's what we're trying to filter out here. Now I have filtered this stuff twice before at the 2 prior pre-boils, boiling them down in stages. And now you can see the filter is slowly going to let this pass down. It's going to take a while for it to get through. The last bit always takes the longest. We're just going to let it sit, and we'll come back later. Okay, so as you noticed, I had some syrup in there already. Now I'm adding this syrup into the coffee urn. I used the coffee urn to assemble a few finals. That way we can get the sap boiled down and processed all the way through to syrup on a quick basis. You don't want to leave partially cooked syrup sit out too long unless you can really get it outside where it's still cold. Because with the sugar content coming up but not making the jump to syrup, it runs the risk of molding. Getting bacteria actually doesn't mold. But once it turns to maple syrup, and it actually changes its structure, and now it doesn't spoil anymore. So you can, put half a quart in this coffee urn and leave it sit on the counter or wherever you want in the house, and then tomorrow add more, and the day after that add more. And then once I get the coffee urn, as long as we're actively boiling, once I get the coffee urn, say 3/4 full, then we'll stop and bottle. I bought this urn for 2 particular reasons. One, it has a thermostat on it. Very few of them do. And it makes bottling so much easier than it was before. And I will have the links to everything that we use, because 98% of it came off Amazon. But I'll even put the stainless pots that we got in the description for you, so that if you choose to want to do something like this, you'll know where we got our product from. So now we're going to start bottling. And there are several ways to do this. What we do is a traditional canning process most of the time. So there we bring the coffee urn out, set the temperature so that the product gets to 180 degrees. We will mix it with a refractor to make sure that its sugar content is where it's supposed to be. We warm the glass up to over 180 degrees in the boiling water. The caps and lids are in there as well. And then we pull them out with tongs and set them down below the output spigot of the coffee urn. I don't have video of that. The project now is to listen for the pop. indicating that the seal, see this little raised spot right here, when that pulls down it pops, and that indicates that it is sealed, and that is the definition of canning. Ooh, there's one. Okay, thanks for joining me today. This is a little bit different. This is done at the city house. The farm doesn't really have a lot of maple. We're still looking for them, but this is something we've started to do at the city house. It's kind of fun. Thanks for coming with. Like and subscribe, and make sure to check out those links for products in the description. Have a great day. Bye.